So good morning, welcome to the British Women's Team Cup here live on the Full Speed Events YouTube channel with me, Matt Payne. And some of you may recognise either the voice or, unfortunately for you, the face, because it is early in the morning that we're recording this as part of the British Women's Team Cup series that has been moved to Zwift. And of course, it's great to be bringing you the action here on Zwift. And looking forward to some real life events coming up soon as well. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see who performs really well today, because this is round two. It's very different to round one in terms of the course and the filler. We'll get into that in a moment. As you can see, our riders just started to line up beside us here, and the time is ticking away. Our riders getting a countdown on there. And if you've not seen a Zwift race before, it is very much like a race in real life with some subtle differences. And we're going to be working our way through there. Now, we saw race number one not all that long ago. And on race number one in the race series, it's a one of four that have been moved to Zwift. So on the 21st of March, we had the Out and Back Again course, which is a relatively flat course on Zwift. We are today in the London Surrey Hills. More about that, of course, in a moment. And then we've got the Three Sisters Reverse, which is really, really hilly. There's no two ways about it. It's a proper mountain course. And of course, we are going to be in the London Pretzel for the final race, which is on the 9th of May. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the races unfold. Now, today would have been the Dave Peck Memorial Race, and we'll be chatting with Natalie Creswick later on, who is a Twickenham, ex-Twickenham rider, and somebody who knew Dave, and of course a prolific women's winner as well. Now, she's won in real life, and in real life the British Women's Team Cup Series, well, that is going to be taking place right the way from the 23rd of May from the Banbury Star right the way through to the Darley Moor Team Time Trial, which is in September. So a big long spread of 7 races that you can see on your screen, and there's probably going to be one somewhere near you, hopefully. So make sure you get down there, have a watch at some of the best riders in the country, all taking part in the Women's Team Cup Series. Now, the Zwift Race Series doesn't count for the overall points in the road race series, but there will be points transferred in from our 4 series. Now, we were out on the 21st of March on Out and Back. In terms of results, we saw a breakaway group kick off and they went clear. That breakaway group started to pull clear with the attacks on the hills, and we saw Victoria Lovett roll in to take that sprint. Now, she put out a phenomenal number. She was kicking out nearly 14 watts per kilo, a huge, powerful sprint. And in discussions with the team manager, we were told that in fact she's actually been targeting this race series, so this is what she's been looking forward to racing for the start of her season. So she really did come good when she needed to, behind 2 very fast riders, Laura Senior and Charlotte Berry. So the San Pirano women's race team getting their first rider in second place with Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes, and Heidi Kayatson team in third place. Behind, though, 2 more San Piran riders with Becky Seal and Bexy Jew, and those riders then followed by TW1's Racing Gail Robinson, who was really active and aggressive all the way through that ride but didn't have it in the sprint. And then we saw Charlotte Colclough come in 7th place for Bianchi Dama, Sarah Briggs for the RFTA team, and then Stasi Bowler of Crowley Rocco come in behind. Red Chili Bikes, Heidi Kayatson team, Pro Noctis team has Sam Forster in 10th and Coincide in 14th. And because it's a team competition, this is what that translates to in the team standings. So San Piran Race Women's team up at the top of the standings with 335 points, and then 215 points for the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Heidi Kayatson team, with Cowley Condors in 3rd, AWOL Walks in 4th, TW1 in 5th. And as you can see, the top 15 teams are with a big, big spread of points depending on where their riders finished. Now, taking me through the race today and providing some insight into the women's racing, as well as into riding these courses and racing these courses on Zwift, is another rider. And chain gang leader, it is going to be Emma. So let's bring Emma in. Morning, Emma.
Morning, Matt.
And it's great to have you here with us in the studio, a little bit further socially distanced apart. I'm not sure that we really ought to need that, but it's always great to get a nice setup. And we saw a really good race, didn't we, on race 1 when we were watching?
We did, and it was a really good race, and it split apart in different places. And we saw some action on the climb, which was absolutely fantastic, and then it led us into that great sprint. And it was quite a big group going into that sprint, so that top 7, and it was anybody's call, and I think we tried to call it, but we didn't quite make it.
Well, such is the life of being a commentator. You can always guarantee the person you pick on is not going to be the person who takes it into the line, but you did call Victoria Lovett's numbers as being big. She looked like she was going to be kicking it out, and she improved even more. And I think those were personal bests, weren't they, in terms of Zwift and Zwift power?
They were, and she wasn't our favoured rider in the group. She'd kept herself quiet, but then, you know, if she was targeting the race, she was doing the right thing. She kept herself quiet and she popped out at the right moment.
She certainly did, and it certainly looked very, very quick indeed as we were watching. Now, we've got a number of teams in here, and our teams have a different kit from their normal team. Let's jump into those team kits, the first team kits here. Now, we have a code next to each of our riders, so we have ALR for the Army Cycling Race Team. Their DS, their manager, is going to be Jessica Wood. So, Jessica is DS, and then we have the basic kit, which is a red and black kit. Now, there is a lot of riders, isn't there, with different team colours, and all these different team colours are selectable by the riders and the teams themselves, aren't they, Emma?
They are, and you'll see some different changes around. So we've got our classic Wasps kit, that lovely bright yellow and black, which is so easy to jump out at. I always think the other basic kit, the green kit, is another one that really jumps out from the peloton and makes those riders easy to spot.
Well, indeed, and not all of the teams fielding riders this time, so that the basic green kit, the standard green kit as you described there, being ridden by Boom Pods this time. We've got Brother UK Cycle Team on form with the Sydney Cycle Club kit, but it's all about, just as it is in real life, being able to spot your riders when they're on screen or they're riding.
It is, and that's what you want to do. You want to be able to spot your teammates really easily, because don't forget they're not riding together, they're riding in front of a screen, and they're looking for their teammates as they're instigating their team tactics. Some of them are probably on Discord as well, so they're on a voice channel so they can actually talk to each other as they're riding on Zwift, and it's all those things to make that team competition a little bit more straightforward in this virtual world.
And that is indeed what it's all about. It's all about scoring those points for the team. So we'll be bringing you some of those riders and the teams, and let's show you the riders who are racing today. Now, you'll notice there's a number of names up here. These are our first 16 of our race field. And our race field is 61 riders, in fact. So we have, first of all, the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Heidi Kjartsen team with Charlotte Berry in there, who is really active and is one of the stronger riders in the squad. But Millie Skinner has been improving all the way through, and you know Millie well. I think you've ridden in real life with Millie.
I have indeed, and Millie wasn't part of the team last time, but she's been putting in some fantastic training and some fantastic performances recently. So I'm really looking forward to watching Millie ride today, particularly with the climbs.
Now we have, of course, TW1 Racing Team. This is our race series organisers team. This is Lisa West's team, and they've got in there Becky Hare. Now Becky, of course, is rather good when it comes to uphill, being a national hill climb champion. It's probably going to be one of the few people that we can actually guarantee is likely to be up there. But has she done much riding on Zwift that you know of, Emma?
Oh, well, there's a good question. I was thinking, looking at Becky, I'm really looking forward to watching her today, because I think this course is going to suit her down to the ground. And it is just going to go up and up and up today. So we shall see. I think one of the really interesting things is Becky's Zwift profile doesn't show a lot of riding on Zwift, so it's going to be really interesting to watch her today execute it on this platform.
Definitely, and it is different, isn't it? Now, one of those riders who is quite light and is Gemma Sargent riding for the Samparan women's team. She's one of the lightest riders in the race field. Not the lightest, but one of the lightest riders in the race field. and has been training hard. One of the riders I've known for a long time, and definitely a rider who we know who can be quick. But when she's got the likes in the team of Laura Senior, you've got Christina in there, Becky in there, Jenny in there. It's a strong team, and they really are looking to reinforce that lead. If we jump to our next team listing, we have the Brother UK cycle team on form now, a prolific team on and off road, backed up by brother Phil Jones, of course, of Brother UK, back in the teams and supporting the sport. And we have in there a few riders. Maddie Vertigo was strong last time, but the rider that really does spring out there is going to be Abby Cooper, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, she's got some really good power. She's experienced on Zwift, looking on this, and she should be able to put in a good race today.
And the Army have fielded two teams, an A and a B. Now, we are waiting for confirmation that they are in this order, because, of course, these things can change at lastminute.com. But we've got Jenny Hill in here for the Army road team. And Jenny, I think, is one of our lightest riders of all the riders in the race field. And that's going to help going up these hills, because, of course, on Zwift, it clamps down on the brake. It does slow you down. And when you look at riders like Hill, she's going to have a lot less weight to carry up the hills, and that makes a huge difference on the uphill. But of course there are flats on this, but not a lot of flat on this course, which we'll come to in a minute. One rider to keep an eye on is EJ Harris. Now, EJ is very, very quick. I've had the pleasure of commentating on EJ, racing a lot of the national series, and she's definitely worth keeping an eye on a tough course, because she's definitely a very tough cookie. Datalink's Peronitis. We have Izzy Torrey in here, another very experienced rider, and a rider who went well in the first of the races. But if we move on to the next run, we've got the Team LDN and again Brother UK in there, some really fast riders in there. We've got Team Watto in there as well, and Maddie Hayward, of course, going to be one of the riders that we got to watch out for, and CC London with two teams, Emma.
Yeah, indeed, and isn't it great to see? I mean, looking at the start list, both CC London with an A team and a B team, and the Army Ladies Road team with an A team and a B team. It's really great to see the depth and number of riders that these teams are putting out today. Definitely,
and the teams are going to be looking to get the best result they can. If we move on to our last listing, it's last but by no means least, because we have our winner of round number one, that's Victoria Lovett in there, riding number 49, riding for the AWOL team. We also have Charlotte Gibson in there, who we know is strong. We've got Wilhampton Race Team with people like Rebecca Kearney. We've got Cowley Road Condors, the team in third place, and they've got a big team in there at the moment. It's looking like they're going to have strength in depth, but don't discount the last two riders in there on their own. The team with the 1904 race team, Matilda Pauls, and Bianchi Dama's Charlotte Colclough, who is exceedingly experienced when it comes to Zwift, I think, Emma.
It is, and she is, and it's really interesting to see those two riders, both the sole representatives of their team, but both finishing in the top 15 last round. So clearly showing that whilst this is a team competition, those individual standalone riders can make a difference.
Definitely. Let's move on to where we're heading, and let's show you the course. Now, this is a fairly complicated course in the sense that we run out on the red line. So we start up at the top where you can just see those chevrons at the top. There's the start pins. We drop down, and then we have 5 kilometres of neutralised in theory. But in practice, it's not going to be. That lead-in will be racing. And one of the reasons for that, as we head across Tower Bridge, drop down through the escalators, we come in and onto Fox Hill. Now, Fox Hill is a brutal climb in its own right. And you can see there's the blue dots down. It comes through and over to the top of the summit. It then drops down Box Hill, and we're on the course proper now. We come around and we first of all go up Leith Hill, which is where the blue dots go into the summit. We drop off the far side and come straight back down again, and we work our way right the way around. Now, this is by no means flat, and we'll show you this in a minute before we go up Box Hill, or part of Box Hill. We'll explain that to you in a moment. Before they drop down, come back round in the opposite direction, which is Keith Hill, which is the longest of the hills. They finish Keith Hill at 31.7k and at 41.7, so 10k further comes the finish back up Fox Hill. Now, if it sounds complicated, it won't be, I promise you, on the screen. It will be pretty straightforward, because what we'll do is we'll unpack this for you. Let's show you what this looks like. This, courtesy of VeloViewer, I've got to say a massive thank you to them, Benno, and all the team at VeloViewer. This is the hill profile of the course. Now, the multiple colours in there show you exactly how steep it is. The red and the black is the steepest sections, going up to 11 and 12%. The colours that are the blues, well, they are the descents as the riders come round. And because we go both ways on this course, looks quite complicated. So let's turn that into something slightly more understandable. Let's get you in a stretched out version in what is 2D. So as you can see, we start off, first of all, Fox Hill. 2.4k, 4.9% and 11.7 maximum. Leith Hill, then Box Hill, then Keith Hill, then Fox Hill again. All of these things come in very, very quickly indeed, and you can see that the riders are definitely going to be feeling the climbs as they make their way up those slopes. And Emma, they are pretty tough stuff, aren't they?
They are, and it's going to be really interesting to look at the tactics here as to where the group selection is made and how these climbs play out in this race. Also, the opportunity to take any micro rests on the downhill in that famous super tuck position that everyone's talking about, and we'll see the riders make use of that today as well.
So with 1,029 metres of climbing, 44.1k, looks like our riders just starting to get underway on the way out. So let's go across to the action, and as you can hear, already up and running now. If we show you a few key parts of this whilst Emma and I are still on screen for you. At the very top of the screen, what's the riders doing? Key number, this how much power they're putting out. Their heart rate, their revs, 101 revs, 166 beats per minute, and the watts vary a lot more. Middle of the screen, a little bit further over, you can see 50 kilometres an hour, 0.8 kilometres covered in 1 minute and 6 done. Right on the far side at the top is the map. Now the map will change during the course of the ride, and it will go from 3D to 2D zoomed out, and as you can see already over the bridge, heading down out towards the hills on these first 5 kilometres below the riders that we are watching currently in with Matilda Pauls, one of those solo riders at the moment. And that shows us because it's on the blue, and it will show you how many watts per kilos they're doing. And from a rider's point of view, Emma, that is critical, isn't it?
It is, and it's about watching the race and watching the riders. And as you can see here, we're already stretched out with this start here with these riders, and people hanging on to the back of that group to stay in.
Definitely. So let's get down to the action with me, Matt Payne, and with Emma Payne here, and bring you all the action here on the Full Speed Events YouTube channel, live coming out to you. It is the British Women's Team Cup. It is race number 2 of the Zwift Race Series. So here we are live on the Full Speed Events YouTube channel, watching our riders head out onto the course, and looking like it is pretty busy already. As you can see, it is quite well strung out. There are riders dotted around on the map on the top right of your screen. Our helicopter shot showing it is already very busy. Down with the riders on the front. This bunch are starting to break up already on this hill, and remember of course that this is just the running, isn't it, Emma?
It is indeed, but you can see that the riders at the front, and I've seen Gail Robinson already split on that front of that pack, and they're trying to stretch that out already, and we've got some casualties already going off the back of that group, but you can see how long that snake of riders is at the moment in that run out from the start.
Definitely, and as we take a look from Matilda Pauls up the course at the moment, you can see there's a lot of big numbers coming out. Pauls just a little bit further down. Let's jump right up towards the front here with our leading rider at the moment, and this is going to be Christina Vajak on the climb at the moment, but coming over the top is Lovett, the rider who took a victory in race number 1. As we watch them come up here, you can see this looks to be splitting already and behind riders in 1s and 2s, but they need to keep going, don't they, Emma? Because if they don't keep going, they are going to find themselves maybe not counting for that team competition.
That is, and it is a team competition, let's not forget that. We might be looking at the front of the race, but it's about the position of your team members that's just as important about your individual position if you're in the front of that group.
Well, that front group is starting to split the pack a little bit further back. Lovett currently sitting in 7th place, senior up there. Robinson, Spirullo. Looks like we've got Bowler Kearney up there. Gemma Sargent is in that group. Thompson. And we're going to just drop our way through. Looks like Millie Skinner sitting in the pack. Skinner, one of the riders that we talked about earlier on, 187 beats per minute already. And Zwift racing is traditionally very quick out from the gun, isn't it?
It is. When that gun goes down, there's no easing your way into the race. It is full bore from the banner dropping, and that's one of the qualities of Zwift racing.
Yep, definitely. And easy to draft. And even at this speed, we're at 12 kph on the steeper sections. Remember, this is 10%, and you can just see by the wall on the side, if we drop down alongside these riders, we're going to be able to see just how steep this is. It is going to be dragging on, gripping those smart turbo trainers, isn't it?
It is, and the changing gradient is very evident when you start hitting 10, 11, 12%. They're really noticeable on those smart trainers.
Definitely. Now we're seeing Strilla just moving away up. You can see the gaps opening up in front on this, the first ascent of Fox Hill. Now Fox Hill is a really steep climb. The steepest part is at the very start of it. You can see the red on your screen, the steepest part of the gradient. It then zigzags its way up before easing. We've then got a drop coming over the top of the hill and dropping down. It is a very tough hill and unrelenting all the way up to the top. So we'll leave that on for you just in the top of your screen, and let's work our way through these riders, because we have riders now being distanced already. It looks like Emily Brisson a bit further down. It looks like Becky Hare further down. This is not what we expected of the National Hill Climb champion, and at the moment looking like she is in about middle of the pack, towards the back of the pack in fact there, Emma.
Yeah, but I suppose what we've got to remember here, Matt, is we are only 6 minutes and 3k into this course, and we're already hitting this first climb. It really is a race from the start, up a climb, isn't it? There's no rolling, there's no give here.
Definitely, and you can see the riders are incredibly stretched out. I think 1 minute 58 through to Gibson and Hare from the last rider. It looks like Julie Hill trying to close down on the leaders. Vertigo, another rider that we mentioned in a small group here. But the gaps, as you can see on those time gaps, are really starting to open up. Now EJ Harris sitting in the group here, but it is fractured to pieces. And I can't imagine that anybody is going to look at this and think we're going to go quickly into a downhill and get this bunch back, because at the moment with Coldclough and Robinson stretching this out on the front, there are riders being distanced, and one of those riders looks like Lovett has had to work her way back into this group, but she's not on the front at the moment.
Yeah, it's become a very select group very quickly, hasn't it, as we've been going up this first climb. And also we've got to remember in Zwift that you can look at the different bikes that the riders have chosen and the kit that they've chosen to actually ride on this race. And of course the bike that you're riding in Zwift has an impact on the algorithm and where you're placed.
Indeed, so Zwift totally changes how you ride in terms of if you've got a lightweight bike, you will get a better result. Now, at the moment, Lovett with a heart rate had gone up to 192, just doing a little bit of recovery here. It's down to 187, and but the watts have dropped right off here. She was trying to hold that front group and now starting to be distanced. Gornall, though, making the move, trying to get across from the leading group, and at the moment you can see Gornall on a lonely ride on her own. She's sandwiched between the front group and the back, but she's putting out out substantial power at the moment, 4.7 watts per kilo. She's got 8 seconds back to Boniface and the chasing group behind, and that is the second big group on the road. But the leading riders at the moment, well, they are still really stretched out here. We're just in with Charlotte Berry. You can just see Corin Side behind, and looks like Spirapulo and Sargent now going to about 3 seconds behind, and Berry's going to have to try and make this catch, because as we come up towards the top, we're going to go over the crest. If you remember that peak, if you see the transition between yellow and blue, that's where we are at the moment, and we're going to drop down. In the distance, you're going to see the gantry, and this is part of the climb, is this descent. And I know that sounds really weird, but essentially you've got this little descent before it kicks slightly again. You're going to see the gradient on the top right hand side of your screen increase 2-3% as it goes up here, and then it's going to run in. And at the moment, it looks like Vijay and Berry a couple of seconds off that group, and they're just trying to make contact here behind them. You can see that gap has already opened out. And generally on Zwift, you've got to be in a group, because that drafting effect, it is real, particularly on the higher speeds on the far side of the climb.
Oh, definitely. You really don't want to be a lone rider riding on Zwift in a race. The power of the draft and the speed at which a group will move at in comparison to an individual rider is really, really noticeable. And if you can just see there, we've just had the riders go over the top of Fox Hill with some really quick times there. Look at that. So we've got from 1st to 7th place all going over within a minute of each other. So all in at 6 minutes going over the top.
Now as we go over the top, we're just in with our leading group at the moment, and a 6 minute time is quick. You can see behind our two chasers trying to close that gap down, but the gap has opened now to 4 seconds, and with a number of riders here, it is going to be 7 against 2 at the moment. The pursuers are trying to chase. They're going to come around that bend behind, but they are fractured into smaller groups behind. So this is Group 1. We have a duo of chasing riders behind. That is Vajak and Berry, who are at 4 seconds. Then behind, it's 12 seconds back from this leading group down to the main chasers here. Looks like Sergeant Lee side all in that group at the moment. Everybody is chasing the wheels. Now, just seen 1 or 2 riders that took him really, really low here, Emma. What's that all about?
We've got a super tuck going on here. So once your gradient and your speed get to the right relationship, you can then stop pedalling and take a rest. And your avatar drops into the super tuck position, and of course you're not putting any effort in at that point in time, but those avatars are staying with the pack.
You see here the numbers are big enough indeed. It's 58 kilometres per hour and minus 3% gradient, and it will allow you to stay in with that group. But Zwift takes into account the wheels, the aerodynamics of your wheels, the weight of your wheels, the same with the frame, the same with the rider, and all that. The height is all taken into account, and that is why it's such a realistic platform to give us these race positions. Now that gap has opened. We're now at 8 seconds back to Berry. So is this going to be the group that we're going to see the winners come from? It's going to be very interesting if it is, because there's some very strong riders in here. Robinson and Coldclough really did show that they had strength to spare, but they didn't have the speed when it came to the end to take the win. But they've dropped the winner from last time, and that is Lovett, dropped on that initial climb of Fox Hill.
And it's really interesting Zwift racing, isn't it? Because take a look at this. So these riders, their heart rates, if you can look at the information on the screen, are dropping. Look at the recovery these riders are getting at the moment on this descent. You know, that heart rate has dropped, 15 beats in terms of the time I've been talking.
And that is incredible from what was a peak of nearly 200 all the way down. Now, let's jump in with the chasers behind. They're still on the descent here. They're currently in 19 seconds. So if we drop back, we're just going to have to get back across to Sargent. It looks like our 2 have become 3 here. So it looks like Lee is in here as well. So we have 3 riders chasing. The leader's just going round the turn. But you can see now that gap up at 22 seconds. And this group are being caught, I think. And we're going to see them get the group of Berry and Vajak behind. They're going to come into the group here. So these 2 riders, fact, it's a split from the leaders there. We're just taking a look through. So the 3 are coming up to these 2. So this is group number 2. They're at 21 seconds down. They're getting 3 riders come across, which is Lee Spirapulo coming across along with Vajak going across to Berry here and Vajak. So it's going to be really, really close. See how close they get here. Lee working well behind. It's 12 seconds back to the group containing Barnes, Boniface, Skinner, Kearney and Thompson. Matilda Paul's in here, and this is quite a big group, isn't it, Emma?
It is, and it's going to be really interesting to see once we start hitting the climbs again how these groups react as to whether we start closing down the gaps or the gaps go further. But it's looking like we've got 3 groups now on this race. 1, 2 and 3, and it's going to be interesting watching this, Matt. We've got 4 more climbs to go, and looking at whether this race is now going to become 4 efforts and 4 recoveries.
Indeed, and at the moment, as you can see, our riders quickly down off one side, and they quickly around and on to their next ascent now. They come thick and fast here, so we come off the top of one climb, we go straight across on to the next, and it just shows you just how fast this is. We come down to the bottom and then quickly on to Leith Hill. So let's show you Leith Hill, because Leith Hill is another of these big climbs, and as you can see, the riders at the moment, they're going to go in, come out, go round the loop, and at the moment that is a really, really fast course. It's quick up to the point where you hit the hill, and then that gradient kicks in and the speed piles right off. We were seeing 60-70 kilometers an hour on the descent. We're now on the ascent here, and already this group is starting to stretch out, with Cold Clough for leading them up here at 19 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, and it's interesting watching it. You can start to see off the back of that main group, they're starting to stretch again as we've hit this climb. We've got some seconds now gapping in the group as people are finding their rhythm.
But we've got to remember as well, this is a long race. It's not just going to be over in the first 10k, but we're nearly 10k into the route already, and we are seeing a real division being made between these riders, with Cold Clough here leading what is essentially a group of leaders in contention at the moment. In fact, it looks to me like Buck is the rider being distanced, and she's the rider who took the Fox Hill QOM, the Queen of the Mountains.
Yeah, she led them over, didn't she, in terms of that first climb. But as we've said, there are 5 climbs on this route, not 1. So it's about consistency, and it's about who can continually repeat that climbing effort.
Indeed, it looks like Buck pacing herself here at 4.8 watts per kilo in front right, just taking a little bit of a rest, dropping off the back of the group in the red there, just coming back and just easing a little bit. And that is the Cyclo Club London rider, just now went off the back, now moves up on to the front. We've got the LDN team represented up here, and of course Bianchi Dama with Charlotte Coldclough. But at the moment we're riding in with a Buck, who is closing on the back wheels of this group. So these 7 riders, this is who we are expecting to be fighting it out for the win. But it's not all over. I mean, got to remember, between the second to last climb, the penultimate climb, and the last climb, there's a 10k run from the top of one hill, the top of the penultimate hill, to the start of the final hill. And those 10Ks are going to be critical to be in a group, because although they're not flat, they're definitely going to be fast. So here we are on the British Women's Team Cup Race Series. Our riders making the way up the second of these hills at the moment. And as we have mentioned before, this is, of course, the Twickenham CC round, or would have been in real life, and it is the Dave Peck Memorial. And one rider who knows all about this is Natalie Creswick. And Natalie, we are lucky enough to have Natalie hopefully going to be on the line very shortly with us to talk a little bit about the hills in real life. So let's see if we can get hold of Natalie. Natalie, are you there?
I am indeed, yes.
Excellent.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, and great to have you with us. Now, Natalie, you're a regular rider on these hills, and so was Dave. Explain to us why the Dave Peck Memorial.
I think it's a really important race for Twickenham. Dave was, which I'm sure everyone's already heard, but Dave was chairman of Twickenham CC and a huge supporter of women's cycling. And he tragically died in a cycling accident. So this race, which Lisa puts on every year, is a kind of way for everyone to remember him and a really nice tribute to him as well.
It is, and as we make our way up here, we're all already working well up this climb. The rider's definitely looking very, very strong, and it is a tough race. Now, you won the first Memorial race, I think the year it was instigated.
I did, yeah, first year. Myself and Annie Simpson got in a 2-up break pretty early on from the start, I think. Worked together really hard, really well. I've never been more determined to win a race in my life, to be honest. The bunch nearly caught us, swallowed Annie up, I think about a lap from the finish, and there was no way I was letting them catch me. I've seemed to find an extra gear that I didn't know I had, so my favourite win, probably the one that means the most to me, really.
I'm sure it does, and I mean, Annie Simpson we know from series race wins, national podiums, and being a great rider on and off road. But swallowed by the bunch and a solo win is always special. But to do that on basically your home turf and home hills, home roads on a race remembering Davis was obviously special. Now the race has continued onwards from there, hasn't it? And it's great to see it continuing, even though we can't actually be on the real roads this year.
Yeah, I think a huge credit to Lisa for putting this series together, and especially doing it at such short notice for race number 1. This is a great, I'm sort of half talking to you and have also been DS for TW1, so Twickenham's sort of women's race team. And so it's a really nice opportunity for me, having hung my road race wheels up, to still be able to be involved in it as a DS, which is great. Well, I've hung my road race wheels up.
I was going to say, I'm sure Emma has been racing on the same course as you plenty of times on the mountain bike, and racing is racing, isn't it? Everybody wants to be out there really giving it absolutely everything on the climbs, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I suspected that this would be a bit of a war of attrition, so people pinging off the back rather than anyone making any breaks, and it's looked like that happened before we even got to the hills, to be honest. It shot out from the start line like a rocket.
It did, yeah. That is very typical of Zwift. It goes like a rocket, but to break as fast as it did on Fox Hill. Fox Hill, it's not the nicest of hills. I have ridden it in real life, and it's not my favourite. Not that many hills are my favourite, I have to admit. A bit like you, when I hung up my wheels after 13 National Hill Climb Championships, decided that I much more enjoyed food and life than riding uphill. I have to say, Fox Hill's definitely not particularly easy, but they're now on Leith Hill, which is a different beast, isn't it?
Yeah, much longer. I've ridden up this road in real life many times, and I think it's always where on Zwift and in real life you can see the like estate wall that comes up, and I always think, I'm nearly at the top there when that wall comes up, and then actually you realise you're not, that you've still got quite a long way to go.
Well, our riders are coming up. Yeah, our riders are coming up to that estate wall at the moment. You can just see it coming in the distance, and when that hits, it as you say, you think, I'm nearly there. You're not. It's not even close, is it? It continues onwards and gets steeper again.
Yeah. I think it's the steepness that hits you sort of after you get to that wall, and in fact, when it sort of turns, that's when it gets even steeper.
It's certainly going to be interested to see how our QOM Buck goes on here. Now, we thought Buck would be a little bit closer. Seems to be yo-yoing off the back here as Charlotte Colclough keeps the pace high, along with one of your riders, Gail Robinson from the TW1 team.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see Gail up there again. She rode a cracking race in the first round, and digging in, doing superbly.
Yeah, riding very strongly again on the hills, which we saw last time, but didn't make it in that sprint, putting a few attacks. Now, without telling all the rest of the teams, are we expecting to see her on the attack on the hills, or have we seen some sprint practice in between the races?
I couldn't possibly divulge. Any inkling. There's a plan, and hopefully you will see the fruitions of that plan.
Well,
the fruit of that plan, I should say.
Yeah, if the plan comes to fruition, then I'm looking forward to seeing that, and hopefully we'll come back to you. Maybe not quite that team car moment of them banging on the steering wheel and the dashboard, but on the desk in the office instead. So thank you very much, Natalie. We'll let you get back to your DS duties.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers, and we'll hopefully speak to you later on. You never know.
Perfect.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
So great to hear from Natalie there, and Emma, it's interesting to see that she's still not giving up the racing completely, even though maybe the road race wheels have been hung up.
Oh, it's hard to give it up forever, isn't it? I say that as I'm coming up towards Vet 50. Okay, so I mean the race is really interesting. I mean it was really interesting to hear you guys chatting there, but you can see this group are really hanging together now. But Buck is now off the back, and so is Wright. But Berry has moved forward from that group behind and broken away and put a 20-second gap in between herself and the group behind. So she's having a good ride up this climb.
You can just see them in the distance. In fact, behind, if your screen's big enough, they are just about in view. But it's Matilda Pauls, the rider who we followed out over the bridge, who has got Berry in front. But the team here clearly wanting to get across, and the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes, Heidi Arts and the team wanting to push Berry into that group, and they've got to be aware that they need to get some numbers up there to challenge the San Piran team. But at the moment, just looking at the San Piran team, they look to be a fair way down at the moment, and it's probably going to be that second group with a rider which is going to be probably Vajak, who is their first challenger, Sargent in the group as well for them, but looking for their third counter at the moment. They seem to be quite a long way down. So just keeping an eye on a Sargent at the moment at 4.5 watts per kilo. Vajak up the road chasing Berry. They won't want her to get too many points, but that leading group of riders, 26 seconds to Buck. And as Emma said there, that gap is there, but it's almost like Buck has really felt that pace. Berry coming across at 37, 38 seconds at the moment from the leading group. Wright is definitely distanced here behind. So at the moment our leaders are Colclough, Senior, Robinson, Shear and Shrewsbury, who are the riders in that leading group of 7 up there. Then we've got Buck, sorry, it's a leading group of 5. Then we've got Buck in the 6th. We've got Wright in 7th. And as our leaders make their way up, they're going to come through the arch here, the top of the climb. It's 5 leaders clear. 26 seconds back to Buck. And as you can see, our first 5 riders in and through the top of the climb. They're going to be on to that descent, and it is Senior who took the fastest time up there on the Leith Hill climb. Now we've got a big drop down coming up here towards the next climb, because as we come off the top here at 14, just over 14.5 k as it came over the top. The start of the Box Hill climb is at 21 k, so we've got 7 k, most of which is downhill. So the first riders through. Let's jump back. A Buck on her way up, just coming through that gantry. You can just see the gantry behind. She's currently in 6th place at the top of the climb. As they come up, it's going to be a Wright who's going to come through in 7th place. And that gap back to Berry in 8th place now, 16 seconds from Wright. So Berry at the moment in 8th place. Then it's the group chasing the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and so on places. Currently being led by the San Piran team. Rider Matilda Pauls being absorbed into this group. Coincide is in there as well for the For the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes, so Heidi Kjartsen team, looks like Barnes in here as well. So Barnes riding very strongly up into this group. So we're going to see plenty of our riders still in action, but the leaders about a minute and a half down the road, and the pace really is picking up here at 75 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, and if you can take a look again, Matt, we've got some of the riders utilising that super tuck position again, getting those rests on the way down. Other riders choosing to pedal, and look at the difference between the watts they're putting out. We've got riders putting out 8 watts per kilo there versus others actually in the tuck position doing nothing.
Well, Kolkloff went sprinting up, and that is the way to do it, isn't it? If you are coming down just before you go into the super tuck position, you put out a big kick, pick that pace up, and then drop into the super tuck. From the back of the pack, it will shoot you through the group really quickly because you're using that draft, and that really accelerates you up. And if you look at Kolkloff and Robinson, they've both utilised this. They've come from the back, they've kicked in hard, and then they've gone into super tuck. And Kolkloff really has got this mastered, because if we go alongside Kolkloff, or attempt to, she's tucked down. You can see that the moment the riders go in front, she's able to sit in behind them without making any effort. And look at that heart rate. As Emma said, it tumbled last time. It's right down at 132 beats per minute here. So it has dropped, and the riders who are continuing to work are going to be expending a lot of energy as they come on, but the gradient disappears now. Kolkloff has to pick the pace up quickly, and that was a little bit of a miss there, I think, by Kolkloff on that gradient change.
And that's one of those tricky things you've got to really keep your eye out and know your descents when you're using that super tuck, because the second the gradient changes or your speed drops, you've really got to pick up and move.
Yep, the group with the power will quickly kick over the top of those gaps, over the top of those slight rises, and if you don't have the pace at that point, if you're still in super tuck, that slight lag going through will be enough to make a difference. So really is going to make a difference to how those riders ride. Behind then, it's Buck currently at 45 seconds. We've got Wright currently sitting at 1 minute 14 in 6th position. Berry at the moment in 8th place, 1 minute 25 down on our leaders. Then it is the big group with Vajak, Sargent, Kearney, Spirapulo, Barnes in here as well. And they are currently just about 2 minutes down behind them. Then Thompson and Gornall, both distance from that group. Leon her own, Boniface on her own. They're going to need to find a group here, because this is the next pack. And this is going to, we say pack, it's not a huge group here. And this is riders, people like EJ Harris, Striller, Cuts, Torrey in here. So some really good riders at the moment being left behind by our leaders, who are well up the road now.
They are, aren't they? And you can see the speeds that some of the groups are picking up on the descent, topping out at over 90 kph.
90 kph, I mean, that's a phenomenal speed on road. In real life, it's a very fast speed here on Zwift, and one of the things that Zwift do is you get rewarded with badges for the achievements that you get, and one of those achievements is going quick downhill. One of my favourite badges, I must admit. I've got to be in it to win it, and I must admit I've been in it to win it. I can do 90k downhill, but don't ask me to do 20k uphill. It's not going to happen, that's for sure. Now, the riding on Zwift, it does replicate real life, and very quickly out of that descent before they head back in towards London, the riders have taken that left and are now on the run around to head in towards the start. Box Hill start itself, it's not very far away. It's just under 2k away, and our riders will come around now. On Box Hill, they're going to come in at a slightly different point to normal. For most people coming into Box Hill, the full Box Hill climb is about 3 kilometres long. However, today we are going to join Box Hill about 300 metres in, and because of that, we're not going to see the times of the riders going over the top. But if we were to start, what's the normal time for Box Hill, Emma?
Normal floor, I would be expecting these riders to go up around 6 minutes. 6-7 minutes, depending on how they're taking it. But one thing just to point out there, Matt, all those gains those riders made closing the gap on that front group on the climb have completely gone on that descent. That front pack really were flying down that that descent to put the gap back into those riders who'd worked so hard to try and close it on the climb.
Definitely, and you can see the riders out here, people like Shrewsbury, they know these climbs and these descents well, and they know where to work, because the team really that are the bigger winners in here for me is the squad. They've got the LDN on their moniker at the side, so the Team LDN, Team London Brother UK team. You've got Shrewsbury in here, and you've got Shear in here, so 2 riders from the same team, and that is going to change how it rides. Colclough on her own can't have any more teammates. She's the only rider from the Bianchi Down squad in here, but it didn't seem to stop her last time out, did it?
No, not at all. She utilised the pack and the other teams very, very well, and rode a storming race. But it's interesting, isn't it? Like you say, 2 riders from LDN Brother UK. We saw a very similar picture with Sam Paran last time out, but they haven't got the numbers in that front group like they had before. Just 1 rider this time in terms of senior.
So they aren't really going to need to pick that back up, are the Sam Paran team, and at the moment the 2 leading teams, because of course Charlotte Berry currently leading out the Pro Noctis squad is stuck on her own. She's again back in the front of this group, but she's constantly fighting, isn't she? This is a terrible place to be, being a strong rider, stronger maybe than the group you're with, but you need that group for the intervening periods between the climbs.
Yeah, we saw her on the last climb. She was putting a real gap on this group last time on the climb and put about 20 seconds in. Yet on the descent, they've pulled her back in.
They have, and you can see at the moment Millie Skinner is the other rider from the FLR team with, I think she's got a teammate in there in Corinne Sy, so I think the team there have got 3 riders from the team that are there in the Z Peugeot style jerseys, and all 3 are riders together, so they are the squad with 3 riders in there. We're looking to see if the Sam Paran team have got any kind of strength in depth at the moment, but it's not. It looks like they've got 2 riders in there, but they've not got 3 at the moment. But up the road, you've got Senior in here at the moment, leading them out on as a team. So it looks to me like it could well be the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes team that are going to be in there now. Our rider taking that left turn there onto the climb. This is the ascent of Box Hill. They come in at the junction. If you look at the map, top right hand side, you see a small roundabout. That's normally just after that roundabout, between there, coming round the left turn towards where the arrows are. That is where you'd normally join, but as you can see, the riders coming from the left hand side of your screen on the map, coming down, taking a left turn onto the climb. And again, Colclough quickly on to the front. Senior sitting in the middle of the pack for the Sam Paran team. Senior with the fastest time going up Leith Hill, but Box Hill, it's long, and it isn't the easiest of climbs. Lots of people will have ridden this, whether that's as part of the Pro London ride, and as you can see, no real red sections on this. It is just a very, very constant gradient, so it would suit a more time trial based rider, wouldn't it, Em?
Yeah, it's a climb where you can really set yourself a rhythm, and you can just sit there and tap that rhythm out. You're not looking for, or you're not expecting to see big changes of gradient, and you're not getting the downhills followed by the 12%. You've got a constant climb here, and you can tap that out.
And that's what's happening here. It's all about keeping that pace. We don't expect this to be as aggressive a climb, and it doesn't suit a rider who likes a step climb. A real good indication would be if you were to go out and watch myself and Emma on a climb out in the Peak District. It's a long draggy climb, something that would suit, say, a rider like Millie Skinner. It's a long gradual climb like Box Hill, and Emma would be sat at the top having an ice cream waiting for me, pretty much. Put us on something steep, which is steppy. So something like where we've got Fox Hill with a ramp, we've got downhills, we've got kicks in it. That then would suit a more explosive rider who can't sustain the effort of doing a time trial effort. So on a climb like that, I'll be sat at the top having a coffee quite comfortably, waiting for Emma. And it's just about what suits each individual rider. Now, these 5 riders are clearly well matched. They've stayed together over the first 2 climbs, which are 2 very different climbs. But we're now on Box Hill on this time trial effort. But it's hard to leave somebody behind on a time trial style effort because, of course, you've got that drag in there as well.
You have, and you can see from the times that the riders are putting out here and the watts per kilo they're putting out on the right hand side that they're sitting fairly comfortably together on this climb.
They are, and the gap has opened up. It's 1 minute 26 now to Berry. Berry leading again, just going clear of this. And Bowler put in a great ride last time. The County Road Condors team rider chasing at the moment, and you can just see Bowler in here in the red, maroony plum jersey. I'm not great on plum colours. It's not my favourite kit, I must admit, but that burgundy plum maroon colour, take your pick what you want to call it, with the lighter pink stripe, is the colours of Bowler. Bowler put in a great ride on the last race now. The TW1 team putting riders up there as well. It looks like, though, Barnes at the moment kicking on Spirapulo, Buck in here. And remember, of course, Buck was the rider who took the QM, the fastest time up the first climb. So this group of riders now 1 minute 31 down on our leaders, and this is the chasing pack. So at the moment, these riders are running through, and it looks to me like it is going to be from what is going to be about 7th place right the way down to a going to be about 18th place, so about 10 riders in this group behind. Then it looks like Thompson and Gornell going to be a duo of riders behind, so this is effectively Group 3 on the road. It's a duo of riders. They are separated by a little bit of distance at the moment, so we have a Group 1, which is our 5 leaders. We've got Berry just clear of Group 2, but it's only a matter of a few seconds. Group 3 then are well down, and currently 1 minute 25 clear of this chasing duo. The leaders, though, well up the hill behind them. Fogel, Harris, Striller, Pullman, Watson in there. Looks like Nottage, all these riders onto the climb at the moment. We're going to see a few more riders coming round that turn, but they are scattered all the way around the course at the moment, aren't they, Emma?
They are, but if I'm looking at this correctly then, Matt, I'm seeing all the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes riders in the top 20, which is a great positioning from a team perspective.
Yeah, definitely, and I think the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Hurricane team, they are going to be very pleased with that. Their DS Rick Lister will be, no doubt, very, very happy with that. And Rick, a very experienced rider, competitor, and of course team manager, and great to see the squad working together well here, and very aware that at times when there's limited in real life racing, they do need to show off their wheels, the kit, the bikes, and the team results on Zwift.
They do. I'm sorry. I'm just looking for our riders from the Sanparan women's team, and because obviously those are the 2 teams who came out of the first race in positions 1 and 2. So it'll be really interesting to see how they stack up in what's a very different race today.
Yeah, the Sanparan team scored half as many points again than the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Hurricane team, but I think that could well be changed around here, because of course Senior at the moment is the rider who's in here from the Sanparan team in the lead, and they've come over the high point on the way towards the climb line of the banner at the top of Box Hill. We'll see our riders coming in and through very, very shortly indeed to go past the visitor centre. These roads well known to plenty of riders who've ridden things like the Pro Ride London. The Box Hill climb becoming very iconic within cycling in the UK. As they go in and through the gantry there, Senior leads them back in and through. Now, as you see on the left-hand side of your screen, Box Hill data not coming in, and that's quite simply because we didn't start at the bottom of the climb proper for the time segment. We came in 300 metres up. Now, these riders still have a nasty kick in front of them because the climb here actually increases once again. You're not over the top of the hill because this is the reverse of Fox Hill, and we're going to drop down Fox Hill. Basically, we come up the back of it, and which is a box. We're going to drop down Fox, and it means that our riders have this final little ramp in front of them before the downhill. But you don't want to go too hard on here, quite simply because you're going to reform on the far side from a small group. But if you're in a big group, as you come up to a crest, the apex of the hill, the very top of it is where the splits will occur. Now, it's not likely to happen with a group of 5, but further back we have bunches of 10, 15, 20 riders. That is where that will become more important.
Yeah, and it's a real little kicker, this. You can see from the gradient, it's sort of 8, 9, 10%, and they're just about to go over the top.
And the riders in this leading group really have come through at some pace. They have opened up the gap on the riders behind, and the chase still being led by Berry. So as our riders go on to the Fox Hill descent, we're going to go across to Berry here, who is now on her way towards the line. Berry, the leading representative of the team from the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Heidi Kjartan team. But although there is one rider in front from the Samperan women's team, it is the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Heidi Kjartan team that have the strength in depth. So we have 2 races almost within one. We have the race for the win itself, but we have the team race. And remember, the British Women's Team Cup is all about how those riders ride as a team and getting strength in depth within the women's race field. Behind, I think it is going to be Sargent, who is chasing here in the group. Pauls is in here as well. This group behind trying to close down on Berry, and they're going to do that on this little section that come through the gantry, and they're heading in towards the rise, the kicker up over the top. And when they do that, they're definitely going to notice the group come back together again, because they're closing in, and Berry now absorbed back into that group as they come in towards the kicker over the top and on to the descent behind. I think it is going to be a gap of about 1 minute 39 to Thompson. So Thompson just coming around the sharp turn before the finish, but lots of riders not far behind. It looks like Fogel, Harris, Striller, Watson, Polman, Cutts, Gorman, Torrey, Graves, Pittard, Brown. It is a real long line of riders. The biggest gap between them is from Graves up to Torrey. That's about 36 seconds. And Graves at the moment in no man's land between 2 larger bunches. But as you can see at the moment, those gaps are opening out between the riders behind. And we're going to go to the rider who led the race into the finish last time on the sprint. Lovett now on the climb on this 5% section of climb, but only ran the first hairpin, heading into that second hairpin at the moment, and it shows you what those gaps are. Currently 42nd position, and that is a real turnaround. Clearly that first race, great performance, but not able to replicate it this time round. And our leaders at the moment already down the climb and now heading on to, guess what, they're going out to the next climb, currently at 28k at the moment, and that means that they're already on to the start of Keith Hill. So let's show you Keith Hill, as our riders already heading up on to Keith. So it is going to be, let's get the gradient, it's looking good at the moment. So Keith Hill, that ascent, it is a tough climb up here. Once again, big old climb for these riders, and the riders are well on the way up this climb, and just coming around those lower bends at the moment. It's looking like at the moment Colclough coming to the front with Robinson once again. So the TW1 racing team at the moment with Robinson and Colclough from Bianchi Dama are the riders really who seem to be pushing on the lower sections, but Senior clearly wanting to establish another fast time up here as well and wanting to maximise the points.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting. We've got around just over 15k to go now in this race, and we've got 2 more climbs. So we've got Keith Hill now, which should be an interesting race to watch in terms of tactics going up this climb and whether anyone's going to push on here. because obviously we've then got the descent off here. We've got a longish flat run-in of nearly 10k before we go into the final climb. So now, is this group, Matt, going to wait till that final climb to go, or are we going to see some action in terms of trying to break this group up on this climb?
Well, my expectation on this climb here, the Keith Hill climb, there is a kicker about midway up, 2 steep sections, but the kicker midway up is the one if you're going to go for it. But that's, personally, I think that's too early. I would be waiting here for the riders to get into the rolling section. Now, we say it's flat between the end of the top of this climb and the start of the next. It's not. We've got a big downhill. Now, for me, that's a great attacking point. I can use the power, I can use the mass, the extra mass I have to really attack on those downhills, but it's really hard to get away. Much better to wait to that rolling section of road to really attack and use that to put in multiple attacks on the way through. So if you're not a sprinter, great place to attack, put multiple attacks. If you're a climber, you're already in this group. You're not going to be in here if you can't keep that power coming down and get a really good power to weight ratio. And if you look at these riders, they really are motoring along here. At the moment, we've got Coleclough on the front. Coleclough 170 beats a minute. Robinson is behind 169 beats a minute. Then it's Shear 164 beats a minute. Shrewsbury 176 as she comes through here. And all these riders all in a very similar heart rate, very similar watts, very similar rest, very well matched on this climb. But coming to the front here, the Dave Peck Memorial Road Race being run here on Zwift effectively because it's not able to run in real life, and it looks to me like Robinson put in a great ride here for the team. She'll be wanting to take the win on this on what is effectively home turf, but to me, Senior is the rider looking to maximise points. She's got the gap now at 2 minutes to the chasing group. She's in a secure position. You can lose that very quickly on the climb, but as long as she stays in that group, she'll be well away. She can maximise points by taking the win, but she's got to do that up Fox Hill, and she's shown she can climb quickly. Can she drop the rest? And remember, of course, the LDN team, the London team in here, Team London Brother UK, have 2 riders in here, and they will not want that to break apart. But at the moment, Coleclough and Robinson, for me, leading the running, particularly on this one of the steep ramp sections here, going up to 8%.
Yeah, and it's, from our top 7 last time, we've got Senior, Berry and Coleclough in here as 3 out of the top 7 last time. And it's interesting to see, isn't it? A very different course, but those 3 riders are in the front pack again.
Yeah, and we're looking here at Robinson and Coleclough. These 2 are putting the pressure on here a little bit. You can just see the gap has started to open out slightly between the riders. It's not much, it's not enough to affect the drafting between them, and they're having to respond, and it's Robinson who is kicking on with the pressure here. 12% now, the gradient really has gone up. And the maximum gradient on this hill is a brutal climb. It goes up to that 12% mark on its way over the top here. So at the moment, you can just see the riders really are pushing on and taking its toll. These riders are working very, very hard indeed. Now, we are only about halfway up this climb, but it is all uphill on the way up here. These 5 riders still together. So whilst we keep an eye on that gap between Coleclough and Shear leading the chase behind here. And you can just see Shear at the moment has got Senior on the wheels, but the gap is starting to open. We're going to try and get a little bit of a view of this, and it looks to me like the 2 riders on the front, Robinson and Coleclough, need to push now if they want to break them. This is how you do it on a long climb. As soon as you get the gap, you push a little bit more, a little bit more. Not a massive attack because it's not steep enough to do that, even at 9%. But it looks to me like Shear is going to be the rider who's going to be able to come across here for LDN. And behind them, they're looking at each other here. It looks like Senior and Shrewsbury at the moment. The legs have gone because they're both sitting down. That gap is opening. It's 3 seconds at the moment to the back of Shear. They've got to respond, and they've got to respond quickly because the gap will open now. Just watching this, look at this. Senior went off the back, and it looks to me like Shrewsbury could be in danger of dragging Senior up there, but she's got to get the gap quicker. She's not going to do that. Now, Shrewsbury at the moment is going towards her teammate, going towards Shear, and she won't want to drag Senior back in there because Senior is a threat when it comes to that final hill, that final climb. And at the moment, Shrewsbury just starting to back off a little bit here. Now you've got to wonder, is the team manager in the ear saying back off, or are they not worried about Senior and thinking they've got the gap? Because at the moment, she's not going to want to tell a teammate across the LDN, Team LDN. Brother team have got a rider in the leading group just hanging on to the wheels there, and a rider in those chasing duo.
Yeah, and that front three are really pushing on now. You can see the difference in the watts between those two chasing riders. And that gap, the gaps on Zwift go out really quickly once they start to form. You know, once 1, 2, 3 second gaps are formed, unless you're closing it down really hard, pulling it back. And look, Gail's put another dig in there. She's gone over 5 watts per kilo, and she's really pushing on this climb now.
She's nowhere near the top as well. This is the thing. She's about 2/3 of the way up, and so it's a big move going now. She'll know these roads inside out. She's got insider knowledge with the 2 DSs, with Lisa, and with, of course, Natalie Tresick in here. And Robinson is pushing on hard here, and this is opening a gap. She's shed Senior, she's shed Shrewsbury. They're now at 20 seconds behind Robinson, but she's also lost Shear and Colclough. And look at the gap, it really is opening. It's now 7 seconds. And interestingly, Colclough is not responding to this time round, and it's being left to Shear to go up the road. And Shear at the moment has got a teammate behind. And Colclough, I think he's saying, well, you get on with it. You're the one with strength in depth. You need to get this done. But it looks to me like Robinson's gap is getting big now. Can she take, a solo win on here, replicating the win taken by Creswick in the very first Dave Peck Memorial race? Would be some going, wouldn't it? That would be a real home win.
It's fabulous to see the difference in the tactics at play here, isn't it? I'm really pleased to see an attack going in on this climb, and not seeing, it was a small group, wasn't it, Matt, of only 5 riders, but it's great to see the fact that we've got these women attacking on this climb before we get that run into the final climb, and they've not left it to the final climb. It's great to see them going early and really trying to break this apart.
Well, Robinson, as we said when we were talking with Natalie earlier on, didn't have the sprint in the finish. She didn't she wasn't there to kick it in, and if you look now, she's not left it to chance. She's now at 14 seconds, but we've got a big descent off the far side to come. We are going to drop off the top here of Keith Hill and drop down what is the Leeds Hill climb. It's a long way down, and these two will have the advantage of being 2 riders versus 1. So 1 rider at the front, it's Robinson, who is on the flatter section here of Keith Hill coming in towards Gantry, than the big downhill, currently at 17 seconds back up from Robinson to Shire to Colclough, who are both together at the moment. They're just starting to get onto that levelling section, but Robinson it is who has the gap at the moment. They've got 40 seconds now from our leader to Senior and Shrewsbury. We've got 2 minutes 49 to the group containing Kearney, Vajak, Bowler and Berry, and in fact that is stretching out to nearly 3 minutes now, so Robinson's got a gap.
She's absolutely decimated the field on this climb. It's fantastic to see. It's going to be a really interesting descent to see what the second and third place can do to try and bring that down, but they are really going to have to work that descent to try and catch Gail.
Well, Gail over the top now and on to the descent. Her time at 10:46, and that gap has opened, and Robinson well and truly clear of these 2 riders, and they're going to come up to the top. You're going to see what that time gap is. It's 23 seconds as they go over the top at 11:09 for both Shire and Colclough as they go through. They're now descending, and we'll keep an eye on the time gap from riders 1 to riders 2 and 3 whilst they go down the far side. We've got Shrewsbury coming up here with Senior at the moment, so Shrewsbury on the back for the team, the LDN brother team, and then it is Senior, the leading team as they came into this race, the Samperan women's team. as they go over the top. Look at that, 11:38, 20 seconds down. At that point, they came over the top in terms of the climb time, but you've got to add that to the gap they were behind going in. And look, they say are now going to have to push on behind. The group are 2 minutes off the summit still. And you can see Berry once again right on the very front of this group. Bowlers in there coincide. Millie Skinner in here. Gemma Sargent in the group. Spirapulo in here. Matilda Pauls is in the group. A really big, strong group. But they have let the gaps go. They haven't been able to stay with our leaders now.
Group 2 on the road, Matt. Very, very different tactics coming up that climb. It really is a steady pace for those riders as opposed to the effort put in from Group 1.
And you look at what that's done. Robinson going over the top, and this descent is a steppy descent, so you've really got to be on the game. As you were saying, Emma, the descent, you've got to stay above, steeper than 3% descent. It's got to be steeper than 3%. It's got to be faster than 58 kph for you to use the super tuck. And because of that, you're not going to see the riders use it as much on here, because if you get caught out in between the break, it can cost you 2 to 3 seconds to get that back. Now Robinson at the moment 26 seconds. Coldclough, Shire coming along trying to chase this leader down, and at the moment they're pretty much the height of the screen between the two, and these are riders, the chasing duo, a little bit steeper section of road for them than Robinson. Robinson now on the roller coaster that will take around pretty much. She's soon going to be taking that turn, which will bring her around towards the base of the final climb. But at the moment, 35k covered for our leader. It's 400 metres on the road, but it's 30 seconds at the minute behind, and it is going to be a big chase now. Shrewsbury and Senior, who is leading this. Well, at the moment it is Shrewsbury, the Team LDN rider with Senior. And these two look to be working quite well together, but look at the difference in the watts per kilo. Robinson really pushing on here, then Coldclough and Shire behind, and then Shrewsbury and Senior then behind. It is that massive group of riders, and then now only just coming to the top. It shows you that time gap between our leader and this chasing group. So we now have solo leader, two chasers behind them. That's our top 5. This group then battling it out for the positions behind. We're riding in with the team here of the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bites, Heidi Kjartan team. At the moment we're in with Berry. They were team in second place. Will they be the team in top spot? Skinner dives on to the group here, sat on the back quickly into that super tuck position there for Skinner. You can just see working away down through the field here. If we jump in, this is Skinner, who is in here. You just see dropping the Zeb Peugeot team and riders in together. They are all in the same position pretty much. They're in that leading section of the group. Everybody tucking down on the steeper upper sections of the climb, but back up at the very front of the race, it looks to me like Robinson is continuing to extend that lead.
God, it's amazing, isn't it? She's almost put as much damage into that group on the descent as she did on the climb.
That is huge, and she knows these roads inside out. Clearly she's getting good advice from the guys in the team area. Remember, when she gets onto the final climb, it's not all that far away actually in terms of distance as the crow flies, but she's got to make her way round to the base before coming up Fox Hill to finish. And she has got some real rolling roads to get there, but it's not going to be long before she's in on to that side. And at the moment, 41 seconds. Now, we said that the group behind her was out of it. The big group at 3:27. I don't think they're going to touch the top 5 positions, but they might touch top 4 and 5. Certainly not 2 and 3, because 2 and 3, although they're 43 seconds down on our leader, are still nearly 2 minutes clear of that big chasing pack.
They are. And, you know, less than 7k to go now of our lead rider, and it's going to be a really interesting to see whether that break on that climb has been the race-winning tactic.
Well, it's certainly good tactics. She's played the cards and she's gone clear. Let's see if we can we try and drop in and get hold of Natalie, the DS for the team. I'm hoping she's somewhere on the phone line very quickly. Natalie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Excellent. So, you wouldn't tell us what you were planning, but I think it has become fairly clear to us what your game plan was.
Well, Gail's an excellent time trialer, so she's pushing it, time trialing it to the finish. There's lots of shouts of do it for Dave, which I think are pushing her on. It's if it was anything like my experience, it's like someone else is pedaling for you. So I think that's what's going on right now for Gail, because she knew Dave as well, I should add.
Yeah, so Gail definitely pushing on hard here. She's just come around the turn at the base of Box Hill, but she'll turn left off it, won't she, and head round to the base of Fox onto that final climb. So a good time trial rider. She's got a gap of 48 seconds. Are you feeling confident that that's enough?
Anything can happen. The race isn't over. The win isn't the win until you go over that finish line. It's an outstanding gap. I hope it's enough, but you never know what might happen.
Well, we'll see. Behind the two chasers, we would normally put the money on the two chasers, but I think there's, as you say, two people on that bike in front at the moment, because Gail is absolutely hammering at the moment. 5-6 watts per kilo. She's got to just keep that going to the finish. Well, good luck. We're going to let you get back to shouting on, and I think hashtag Do It For Dave is going to be trending all the way around the Twickenham area. That is for sure.
Definitely. Thanks, Matt.
Cheers. So great to catch up with Natalie there, and you could hear the emotion in Natalie's voice there. She's absolutely rooting for Gail, who also knew Dave there. So Dave Peck, of course, the former chairman of Twickenham CC, big supporter of women's cycling and women's cycle racing, and of course the Zwift version of the Dave Peck Memorial, part of the Zwift Race Series, part of the British Women's Team Cup Series. And as we see our leader go round the slopes on the side of the Surrey Hills, Gail Robinson from the TW1 Racing Team leading the race out, 53 seconds back to a chasing duo. We have the rider from the Team LDN Brother UK. This is Shire here in the blue shoulders with the white band on her back, with the diagonal stripes in the blue. Charlotte Kogler from the Bianchi Dharma squad here, and both putting in a phenomenal performance and breaking clear that initial group of 7, whittled down to 5, then down to 3. But Robinson has pushed on. He's now nearly 1 minute up the road from these two riders, who now need to work together. Now, both these riders are definitely good climbers. They're both strong riders, but at the moment it looks to me like Shay just don't get any gap here.
If you're watching these two riders here in second and third place, they are really playing with each other at the moment. Their attacks are coming through, and they're matching each other and sitting back, and then are going again. And at the moment, she is really trying to put some numbers down. But Kolkoff is hanging on that wheel. And you can see the effects of the draft, actually, in terms of how those numbers are playing out at the moment. But they're definitely not sitting up and coming into the finish. These two are really attacking each other for second and third.
And it's a real roller coaster on the way through, so plenty of attack points, plenty of points which would trigger that moment when you push down on those pedals. Maybe you sense a little bit of a slackening off in pace, maybe you just feel tired. And it is possible to do that even though you're in a virtual world and your avatar can't hear your opponent breathing and looking at the shoulders rock. You get to feel on how they're responding and how quick they're coming back at you. If you put an attack in now, Colclough and Shire, their watts per kilo that is there. Basically the performance numbers that we always look at rather than the straight watts, particularly on the uphill sections, are yo-yoing up and down as they put those attacks in. Now behind them, the group are just on to the roller coaster section. It is going to be another duo of riders. Now we have the leading team's leading rider on the course at the moment, and that is going to be Senior. So Senior at the moment is leading this out, Laura Senior for the Samparan team, just ahead of Shrewsbury, and Danny Shrewsbury at the moment sat on the wheels of Senior. And these two riders again, the numbers, you can see them yo-yoing up and down, and Senior pushing on. Shrewsbury responds to that, but they are 49 seconds behind the riders in second and third place, nearly 2 minutes down on our race leader. So in one is Robinson, 1 minute and 10 seconds back is Colclough and Shire, and then behind it's 49 further seconds back to Senior and Shrewsbury. 1 minute 29 behind them. This is the chasing group behind, and this contains the lead riders from the second placed team in the series. In fact, it contains the first, second and third riders for the Pro Noctis Red Chili Bikes Heidi Kjartsen team, and they look to be riding strongly here. They certainly don't want to let any San Piran riders come back, and it looks to me like the nearest challenger could well be coming from Weishak at the moment, and Weishak is, I think, at the moment, who is likely to be the nearest rider here sat in this group. So you've got Weishak in here from the San Piran team, and we've got Gemma Leanne Sargent in here, so Gemma in here, and Gemma, one of the lighter riders, will be looking forward to the uphill. So there are two San Piran women in this squad here, so it looks like they could well be challenging. They've got one rider up the road, so this will be very interesting to see who is going to take this out. Very well matched between the two teams, Emma.
It is indeed, but I'm reckoning our leader's probably got less than 2k to go now, Matt.
Well, it is, but it's a long 2k to go, because this is up Fox Hill. Let's remind you of that Fox Hill profile. It is a nasty, nasty climb. It's steep at the start, and as you can see on this very early section, riders on there in terms of Robinson at the moment onto that climb, 12% on the climb, and already into that red section on the profile, and that is really telling. She's up at 6.2 or what's killing she now. She needs to keep that pace steady. She's a time trial rider. She's likely to be good at keeping that high pace, but not necessarily having that kick.
I tell you what, this is going all over the place, because she has put a massive attack in on Colclough as well, back in second and third at the moment, and I think she might have. There may well be a gap there now.
There is indeed, there is a gap, and at the moment it is Show's got currently 4 seconds on Colclough, but they're on to the climb as well, so they're also on to that steeper section. And if we drop the profile out of the way, you can just make out now the chase behind, and that chaser, it is Colclough who is in the background there. So you can just see Colclough trying to close down here on Shea in the back, in the lead here. So the Team LDN brother rider at the moment in front of Colclough. Colclough chasing here, and has got the rider in front. It's only 4 seconds, and it looks a lot less, but that is quite simply because it is foreshortened because of the camera angle. So onto that 12% again. And because of the steep section here, it is definitely getting tough now. The leader, Robinson, 1:19 up the road. Then it is Shire in second place. 2 seconds down under is Colclough, who's closing that gap down little by little. It's only a couple of seconds between these riders. You can see that gap is coming down behind them. And looks like this group is all together, but watch out from this group. It is going to be really interesting. They're a long way back, though, on the leaders, and remember, sandwiched in between we have 2 riders. This is Shrewsbury and going to be Senior, and it's Senior who we're with, who's actually the fastest rider on one of the climbs sat into this group, and that will make a difference as they come up onto the climb. But our leader is Robinson, and Robinson looking good at the moment. Just giving a nice 1:20 back to the chasers behind. So looks like this could well be in the bag here for Robinson, barring an incident, a problem with the bike, the turbo train, and the wireless connection, of course, already
She's
there.
got less than a K to go now, so what a cracking performance so far.
Yeah, well on to the climb. She's got to get up over the top of the high point, drops down a little bit, and then a slight drag in towards the line, but looking good. Now, for those of you watching a Zwift ride for the first time, if you've not seen any coverage previously, we do need to give you a quick heads up. Top of your screen where the numbers are, those distances will vary, and it is a really complicated reason. that the distances will vary dependent on the processing speed and the internet connection of the game and the rider's connection to it. So you have to, when you're riding on Zwift and racing on Zwift, learn the terrain, learn the countryside, and learn what is around you and what those landmark features are. And that's why it's so important that you get this accurate picture from Zwift of exactly what is happening with our riders. And at the moment, Robinson on that big push up towards the top of the steep section. She's then going to drop down to do, but at the moment she's certainly looking like she's got this in the bag.
Matt Gale's got 500 metres to go, but Colclough, I think, has the string has finally gone between the two in second and third, and the gap is now nearly out to 10 seconds there.
It is definitely, and it is looking good on the climb at the moment. It is looking like the gap has gone, and it looks like Cher's going to go clear here. 10 seconds now. Colclough doesn't want to drop back too far. It's going to be a top 3 for her. The moment our leader going up over the top of the high point here, so she's got to roll down now for the finish. We're going to ride in here with Gail Robinson. Robinson doing a fantastic ride here, doing it for Dave here today. Dave Peck heading into the finish, I'm sure, in the thoughts of Robinson as she pushes on to the finish. So the very first Dave Peck Memorial race was taken by Natalie Creswick. Natalie taking a solo breakaway win after her companion had been pulled back into the bunch, and Annie Simpson being taken back into the bunch. But it was Natalie Creswick in the very first Dave Peck Memorial, the very first online version here today, and we have a solo winner. It's going to be Robinson who's going to take this. Robinson comes up to the line, and it is Robinson who comes through. She takes a victory here today, absolutely flying around the course here and doing a fantastic race. So well done to Robinson, our leader on the climb, and putting in a fantastic ride on the way through. So great riding here by Robinson. We are going to just drop in and across to the riders behind. So great riding there by Robinson. Fantastic to see her coming in and through the finish. Apologies, we're just going to try and shoot back as fast as we can to the riders who are out on course. So it looks to me like a fantastic ride there by Robinson, putting in a fantastic chase into the finish and doing the business there today for us.
It was, and that breakaway in terms of that pack on that climb, and she put the gap in there, she extended that gap on the descent, and she's taken that all the way into the finish, which is absolutely outstanding.
It's great to see her in action and putting in such a fantastic ride, that is for sure. We are going to try and drop in with our riders. It's always entertaining trying to jump back in with our leaders. You have to just bear with us whilst we get up to the leaders. It does take a little bit of time to jump back in and through, just working our way up the hill. You'll be able to pick the riders out as they come in towards the finish here, and just taking a little bit of a check up the hill. So unfortunately the riders are scattered around the course so far at the moment. Actually picking up the riders up on the top of the hillside is going to be a little bit tricky here. Not aided, of course, by the fact that we actually have the riders coming up to the finish at some pace. So going through Shire taking the top spot in second place, getting a podium spot. Colclough coming through to take third place, and Colclough coming in to take that third place spot. We're going to try and jump back to the riders behind, but at the moment with the riders scattered across the finish and the nature of the course, it is a little bit trickier than you would necessarily expect to get to the leading riders, and that is quite simply because of the ability of Zwift to jump across to riders who are nearest geographically. And on this course, that actually means the riders who are scattered around the course. So top three riders in to the finish. The fastest rider in through the finish, taking the win. Gail Robinson of the TW1 team. Second place going to Shire of the LDN Team LDN Brother UK squad. Third place going to Charlotte Colclough of the Bianchi Dama squad. And this looks like Senior is going to take fourth place for the Samparan team. We're dropping back. We're going to get in with Shrewsbury. She's going to take fifth place. Then it's going to be Berry and Wright, I think, as they make their way up this climb. It's Berry who's gone over the top next. So it's going to be Berry, our next rider in to the finish at the moment. So Berry on her way through. So very, very quick finishing indeed with 5 riders home so far. And Shire, Senior, Colclough and Shrewsbury all through the line along with our leader, which is going to be Robinson. Now, it's going to be very tight behind to see who is going to take the positions. And on this climb, Berry of the Pro Noctis team has gone clear. She can see the gantry coming up as she comes in towards the gantry. She's going to be ahead, I think, of her teammate. And this is going to be close here. Side is in this group here. That Side has got to take this. She's sort of teeing up for the sprint here by the look of it. So it looks to me like she's teeing up for the sprint, and that is quite simply because they want to get the maximum points. But look at Vajak in here. Christina Vajak of the Samparan women's team is in this group as well, and it's going to count between these two riders. Meanwhile, Wright has taken advantage of this and gone for the attack, but Wright has gone clear. It's not going to matter so much, but Side wants to stay ahead of Vajak to score more points. And look at this, it's going to be Side who's going to come across. She takes the points and she goes through. Great riding by Side, then Wright, then Vajak behind. It is going to be Pauls, Kearney and Skinner here. So Skinner is off the back of Kearney and Paul's duo here. Sergeant is in this as well, so Sergeant sprinted in for the lines. It's going to be Sergeant Kinney, Paul's on the way through, and you can just see how fast that was on the way into that finish. Now, Millie Skinner is going to be our next finisher for the Pro Noctis Red Chili Heidi Kjartsen team. She's going to come through here. I think it's going to be 13th place for her as she goes underneath the gantry. Then we're going to go, but now is the Spirapulo Buck duo coming into the line. And you can see Buck has gone early here trying to shed herself of Spirapulo, but Spirapulo has responded to this. And they're going for a long one here on the way towards the line. But Buck is on the front now. Is Spirapulo going to time this right as she comes in towards the line? The gantry is coming. This is going to be tight between our two riders. Remember, the results will all be up on Zwift Power. Through the line they go. Barnes chasing hard here behind, and Barnes is going to try and close that gap down. And just working and getting you some confirmed results from Zwift Power. Remember, there's a little bit of processing time in the background by the guys. So Barnes is going to be our next finisher as the gantry comes into line. Great riding by Barnes to come through to the finish. Behind it then is going to be Deliu, who on the way in. Deliu putting in a great ride here for the Team Watto LDN team. So the Team Watto rider heading in to the finish is going to see that gantry very, very shortly. So it is going to be Deliu. Then it's going to be a real group coming in. I think 4 riders together behind. So as Delio comes in to finish, we'll drop back to Torrey. Torrey leading this group of 4 riders. So it is Torrey Watson, then Fogel and Striller on the way up the climb. These 4 riders are glued together on this steeper section here. There's not much to choose between them. 15 seconds back is EJ Harris. And then it's going to be about 29 seconds back to Thompson from that group. But the next riders to finish will come from these 4. Now, Watson going up on to the front. It's Torrey sitting in second position out of these 4 riders. And at the moment, this is the battle. It's 19th, 20th, 21st and 22nd. They're going for on the way in towards the line. And a very fast time of that climb with a sub 6 minute time for our leaders to take the finish there. As we see Watson going over the peak, on basically going over between the yellow and blue on the profile on the top of your screen, with a 3-second gap here on Torrey, and that should be enough to hold off the chasers behind.
Yeah, and as you're saying there, Berry's time up that Fox Hill, and that last climb is the fastest climb of Fox Hill of the day. Don't forget they went up that climb first of all, and the first 7 riders all went through on 6 minutes dead. So Berry today posting the fastest time up that climb.
Yeah, looking good as she makes her way up here. Watson's going to be our next rider into the line, but Torrey and Striller closing quickly. Looks like Fogelli on the back foot now, being distanced a little bit behind. As you see, that gantry is going to come up very, very quickly indeed on the riders. They come round, here it comes. So Watson's going to go through. She's going to be chased to the line by Torrey. Torrey comes through with Striller. Fogelli is going to be our next rider coming through. Then it's going to be EJ Harris is going to be our next rider in. And Harris just coming up over the top of the peak and coming into that slightly easier section. We say easy, nothing's easy at the end of a race like this, is it, Emma?
No, definitely not. After 1 hour 22 minutes she's been riding today. So it's nothing's easy at the end of a race.
Definitely not now. Watching the Army Ladies Road team rider in here, EJ Harris making her way in. The gantry just in front. She's going to come through in front of Thompson, and it will be Thompson, our next finisher here. So Thompson riding for the Pro Noctis team, another finisher for the team, and they've put a lot of riders right up at the front of this race.
They have, and it's been really good to see. So this is, where are we now? We're in 24th place, and I think, is that the last rider to come through from that team?
I think it is, and that shows just how strong they are. Meanwhile, a little bit further back from the CC London squad, it is going to be Polman who's coming up. So Ut Polman coming towards the downhill that will roll it in towards the finish. She's got 10 seconds on Pittard and Brown here, and it's going to be, I think, 25th position. We're going to get that confirmed obviously on the screen. Remember, the results will be up on the British Women's Team Cup website. If you click on to that and then go across to the Zwift Race Series, you can see the race reports there by John Miles, and of course don't forget all the results on Zwift Power as well, the fantastic platform, part of Zwift that actually tells you all of the stats you could ever need.
It does indeed. And currently it's clearly showing Gail Robinson having taken the win in 1 hour and 13 minutes 50 seconds.
Excellent, and the chase behind was strong, but not strong enough to match the rider at the front. So here we go, Brown chasing Polman. Polman is going to see the line. Here comes the gantry for Polman. So as Polman comes through and takes the top of the climb, her race done here to Polman of CC London. A chase to the line by Pittard. Pittard not all that far behind, has Brown for company, and it's going to be Pittard who's going to get this sprinting in front of Brown. Then it's going to be Gornall who's on the descent down in. So Gornall, the next rider coming into the finish, Amy Gornall, is going to be our final finisher. In fact, I think for the FLR score. So Gornall putting in a great ride here with the late additions to the squad on our start list, which is why we've thought we had them all in, but we didn't, which is always good to see more riders than we were expecting. Behind it's going to be 6 seconds back to Becky Hare as Gornall sprints in at 8.4 watts per kilo. Becky Hare on the way in, 7.47 watts per kilo from Becky Hare for the TW1 squad. A win for teammate Robinson taking the top spot. Next up is going to be a fight out between teammates Graves and Hill. This is for honours between the squad here. Hill goes round the outside here, so the bragging rights in the mess will go across to Hill there out of the duo of riders. Now we're just going to take a little look up the road, because I think Nordin will be our next finisher. Then it's likely to be Gibson, and then Caddo on their way towards the line here. So just on the push up to the top of the hill is Nordin from the TW1 squad. Good day out for the team. I'm sure they're two DSs in Natalie Kresick and of course Lisa West being very happy with this. Let's see if we can drop in to Natalie for a final time here. Natalie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hey, God, we thought we'd try and catch you out in your celebrations. Have you opened the bubbly yet?
Well, not yet. No, we've still got riders on the road, so we're cheering everybody in. We've got Gabby's about to finish, so we're trying to keep everyone motivated. Everybody in this kind of race, in a series race, every single finishing position counts. So we're working hard to get every single point we can.
And it must have been emotional seeing the win there by Robinson.
Yeah, it was absolutely. I think Lisa, who's also DS for TW1, was tearing up quite a lot when Gail crossed the line.
I'm sure memories for you, of course, of when you were out there and racing in the result as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, today's Gail's moment. But yeah, it does bring back some really nice memories. You know, it's such a shame we can't be outside racing, but what a great alternative. And having the opportunity to do this.
And it was fabulous, Natalie, to see Gail make that attack quite early on.
Yeah, I know. As I was saying, sort of, we know that Gail's not necessarily the strongest sprinter, so we have to we've got to risk it and see what else we can make. And if you know you're not going to win a sprint in a group of three, you have to kind of try and find other ways to win. Like for me, I think it's better to sort of risk it for a win than think, oh, I'll sit in and maybe get third out of a sprint of three. And it pulled off, which is great to see.
It was great to see, and there's so many riders now coming through towards the finish. Still just under half of the race field, in fact, still on the course, and it shows you just how tough that race was. I bet you were glad you weren't riding it, to be fair.
Yeah, it is a tough course. I was saying to the team, you just don't know, you can't see anyone else suffering around you, so it's really difficult to kind of get that perception that, you know, everybody out there's not going to be one single rider in the race that's not put their all into that and just really given everything on a really tough course. It's impressive.
Definitely very impressive to see, and thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations, and we're going to let you get back to bringing all the riders home.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you
Cheers.
You for having me as part of the stream.
No problems at all, thank you. So great to hear from Natalie there, and of course always great to see the team putting in a ride here, and I'm sure Dave Peck would have been smiling with the team taking the win as well. So just watching our riders heading into the line, and it certainly looks like we've got plenty of people out on course putting in some great performances at the moment. We're going to work our way up the road. I think Nottage is going to be just through the line, being chased by the winner of race number one. This is going to be Lovett heading into line. Not her day today, but she took that win in the first one, which she's going to be pleased about. I'm sure she'll be coming back in the next race, and Victoria Lovett will be looking to go back to top spot once again. So here in the hills of Surrey, watching the riders making the way in and through the line, and just seeing the team pushing on to the finish. This is Lovett of the AWOL Works team coming through to the finish. Big kick from her. I'm sure she comes in just to finish off the race. Behind her is going to be Davison, Ward, Rush and Hamilton. So Lovett comes up to the line to finish. Great riding by her. We've gone back and we're in with Davidson, the chasing rider here, and chasing towards the line. Putting in a strong performance here from the Watto race squad. Behind it's going to be Ward and Rush. So Ward making her way up over the top of the hillside here, and Ward riding for the Army Ladies Road team. Another strong performance from them, and they've definitely got a big strength in depth, but great to see so many female riders racing and racing strongly, Emma.
Yeah, and it's been a really cracking race today. So we can see that the hills on Zwift have really differentiated the field and the riders today, but it's great to see so many riders turn up and to really watch the team tactics at play.
And don't forget, of course, if you want to see just how that ended up, you can get yourselves onto Zwift Power, which will have all of the results. The fantastic results will tell you just how much power they kicked out, whether they were good sprinting, what their results were, who they beat. And it is really interesting to compare the riders together. But with this huge race feel, great to see them in action out here. And in with Hamilton at the moment, just coming in towards the line, and Hamilton's going to be our next finisher here, and another good ride. And the local riders, I think, may well have had an advantage today, because a big strength in depth from London teams up at the finish, although looks like just after Hamilton is going to come Brooks, and Brooks from Scotland.
Yeah, it was great to see actually on the start list today a lot of riders who weren't entered into round one, so a number of teams fielding much bigger teams and of riders this time round. In fact, our 3 out of our top 15 from round one weren't on the start line today, and actually we've seen a real change in the results today from round one. So a very different course producing very different results, and really interesting in terms of the mix.
Definitely a real interesting mix and a real shake-up, and can't wait to see the team standings. Don't forget to get the standings. Make sure you go onto the British Women's Team Cup website. Make sure you go onto the Zwift Race Series pages, and the standings will be on there, as well as the results. And probably as soon as Lisa West finishes celebrating and having brought all of her team riders in. So once the bubbly's been drunk, I'm sure she'll be hard at work behind the scenes. We've got to say a massive thank you to Lisa and all the team who've pulled this together. It's great to have racing on Zwift when we can't get out in the real world, and we are seeing the resumption of some races, but we still will have 2 more races to come on the Full Speed Events channel for the Zwift Race Series. And great action from all of our riders, some great courses coming up, but today has been a particularly hilly, brutal and aggressive race from the word go. So lots of action out there. Plenty more riders are making their way in to the finish at the moment, with Collins just coming up towards the line, up towards the gantry, ahead of De Bono. De Bono on that final pull-up, and it is a nasty finish up here, up towards the top, with De Bono at the moment on that 10% section, which just starts to ease as you get towards the top of the hillside. So De Bono here from the Army ladies B team here, just heading up to the top of the climb here, and interesting to see aero wheels on a lot of the riders' bikes rather than the lightweight wheels, but I think personally I've been putting the lightest set of kit that I've got together to get up and down the hills, and that certainly would make a difference, but it's depends on what your strengths and weaknesses are. If you're good on the hills and not good on the flat sections or the downhill sections, then maybe go for a deeper, more aero setup. So De Bono at the moment on the way up towards the top of the climb. Looks like Tolhurst chasing behind. Currently 22 seconds down. Then it's going to be Smith and Gunning. And remember, Smith, of course, a very quick rider for the TW1 squad, the squad that took the top spot for the individual win, with Robinson coming through to take victory. We've still got plenty more riders making their way in towards the finish and on the way into those climbs. So we will be bringing you those riders home, and all these riders know that every point can count out there in the team standings. That's one of the great things about being a team competition, isn't it?
It is, and it's every rider over the line, as Natalie Creswick was talking about. It's not just about the top 3 here, it's about all the riders in the team, because it is a team competition. And those places that each rider is working hard to achieve all count for points towards the team.
They do. It makes a big difference to those team positions. They've got to get it down. De Bono putting in a massive kick here, 6.9 miles per kilo to the line there to finish her race, as we see Tolhurst now coming over the top of the climb, and that's going to make a difference on the standings, isn't it? All those individual performances, and Sam Piran women's riders, still plenty of riders, got at least one rider out on course, and they were looking for every single point.
They will, and it's really interesting to see, and I'm looking forward, Matt, to the next round. You know, the Three Sisters reverses the course next time round. It's hilly, nearly as hilly as this one, but not with 5 climbs, only with 3.
Indeed, it's not going to be long before we see our riders on that. Remember, the next race date coming up very shortly indeed. So it is our next rider coming up over the top. So just watching coming over the top, it is going to be Smith just on the run in now to the gantry. We've got Gunning, Putza and 2 more riders after that, I think, going to be making their way in to that finish. So Smith for the TW1 squad going to be bringing that squad to a conclusion here on the hills of Surrey, up on the top of Fox Hill, the basically the backside of the Box Hill ascent, and you can see big kick coming here from Smith on the way into the line. She's going to come in 1 minute 50 clear of Gunning, who's on the climb up here. So Gunning on the climb. So just as we see Gunning making her way up towards the higher point of the hillside, we are going to have a little bit of a recap on what's happened out on the race. So Emma, been great to have you alongside me, and as we see Gunning making her way up here, it's been a really action-packed race, very fast from the off like most Zwift races are. That really did break up the race very early on.
It did. The race really went apart very, very early today, and we saw literally from the gun the riders strung out across the road on Zwift. And a very long tail of riders that by the time we'd gone through the first climb, we saw small groups, and we saw that front group really pulling clear very, very early.
They did, and initially it ended up being 7 riders, didn't it, with chasers behind, and you could see that the Pro Noctis team wanted to get more riders up the road into that leading group where Samperan were represented, but they couldn't quite get anybody into place. And then behind, it really did mean that they got a big group pack chasing, but then the lead fractured, didn't it? We went down to 5 riders, we went down to 3 riders, and then we were into those final few hills.
We were, and on those last 2 climbs is where all the action really happened with that front group, wasn't it? With Gail Robinson attacking in our penultimate climb and really putting some distance in, which she gained even further time on the riders behind her on the descent, and then rode her way into the finish. And
rode in very, very strongly. And I thought it was great to see a home rider in the home club's race go out and take the win in a memorial race, and that's always special.
It was, and you know, the first round of the series, we saw Gail as a really aggressive rider in that front group, but she didn't have the legs for the sprint, but she really showed us today that she had the legs for that last 10k.
And some to spare. I think we could have kept on going for another couple of hills by the pace on Gail on that final climb. It was great to see. Now just seeing Gunning coming in towards the line. Going to be a great ride to finish here for Gunning. And the Army Ladies Road Squad putting another rider in and across the line. Now one of our competitors coming in from Germany here, and it looks like the rider for the Cowley Road Condors on the midsection of the climb. It's quite steep here, isn't it, Emma? It's about 7%, and this hill, Fox Hill, coming so early in the ride before we get almost halfway through the leading, so just about 2.5k in, we hit this slope. The top of the slope here is 5k in, and it's also at the finish. Riders up, I'm sure we'll be riding up this very often again, too often, will they, if they're not racing? No,
it's a really tough course, what the riders have done today, you know. Coming out of the start hatch and going straight onto Fox Hill, the climb that you know you're going to finish on as well. It's a really difficult course. But, you know, the riders today have been absolutely outstanding. And if we take this to a team event, you know, both Samperan women's team and who were in the lead going into this, have finished their top 3 riders in the top 15. But Pro Noctis Red Chili have also finished their top 3 riders in the top 15 today in the race. So it's going to be a really interesting, once the team standings come out, as to how that's impacted on the overall team standings.
Yeah, and those they're going to be very, very close, I think, at the end of this race. And then added to the last time, there was a big gap, wasn't there, with the riders separated by about 120 points, I think, between first and second place. I think it's 335 and 220 something points for the first and second teams. Now it's a big gap to make up, but it will be closer, I think, at the end of this one.
It is, I think it will. If I remember rightly from the start list last time, Pro Noctis Red Chili bikes didn't have fielded more riders this time. And I think that might be really interesting to see how that's played out, because all of their riders are in the top 30. I can see from the results. And I think it's going to be a really interesting going into round 3 in terms of the team event.
Well, we are going to give you a roundup, I'm sure, and Emma, no doubt, working away through those results and getting us hopefully the confirmed top 15 very shortly. We're going to watch a couple more riders home, and then just before Balsam of the Saint-Bran team comes through to the finish, in between the Team Watto and the Saint-Bran rider, we'll be bringing you the confirmed results as they're up on the screen from Zwift Power. And remember, of course, they're all subject to ratification by the organising team, by John and Lisa, who will be making sure that everything checks out and everybody is happy with them before they get their final confirmation. So our last 3 rounds up on to the climb, and looks to me, Emma, that we are going to get 53 out of the 66 riders finishing, and that shows you just how tough it is.
It does, doesn't it? So we took to the start line with 66 riders, and as we said, it's been a tough ride today.
So the riders on the climb and put now onto the steep bull on this section of hillside here, and as you can see, if we shoot across, it is pretty lonely when you're out on your own on this section. Of course, everybody's on their own in the garage. They might have family and friends, and it's one of the things that you can do to help yourself along is have people in the pain cave. But some riders prefer to be on their own. They're throwing the bike around their pain cave in the cellar, and really cursing everybody on the race route and need leaving alone. And other people, of course, benefit from the support, and it is very individual, isn't it, in that sense. People do have different preferences, but it is still lonely out going up the climbs on your own when you've not got a group around you to focus on.
It is, and I think what you have to remember when you're racing on Zwift is, whilst you can't see your competitors and how they are actually suffering like you in real life, you do have to remember that whether they're in their garage or their back bedroom, they're still suffering just as much as you are.
Well, indeed, but that suffering's soon going to come to an end now for from the CRC, the Crowley Road Condors squad. And now into that final run. And this is the last little drag you drop off the big hill. You drop down, and it's going to come in just over an hour and 3/4 of riding. And it definitely is a bit of an endurance event if you're out for that length of time. So fueling up, really important for our riders. And looks like definitely done the business here today, as we see put to come in to the finish here for the Cradley Row Condors. Great ride, and great to see another rider in through the finish. We're going to drop back to our next rider out on course, and this is going to be one of our WAT riders. And WAT, the code for Team Watto LDN, who've had quite a large number of riders out on the course, and quite a wide range of abilities, because we've seen them have riders right at the front and the back of the field. But with Zwift, it's learning all the time, isn't it, Emma? Riders really do improve the more time they spend on Zwift.
They do, and there's some real technique to riding Zwift, which you may not well think about if you're sat on your turbo trainer, but learning to draft and using the draft is a real key tactic on Zwift. You can really save yourself some energy in terms of racing. As we saw on the descents, the value of the super tuck and actually learning the course so that you can actually use it appropriately and not get caught out when your gradient or your speed drops. And as well as actually knowing which climbs and what the gradients are and where you can make those kicks, and pretty much like learning an in real life course, but actually learning how to ride the game as well.
And Zwift themselves refer to it as a game, but it is an extra discipline we've gained in cycling over the last few years. Back in 2015, when Zwift was first coming to, you and I both rode it, I think, back in 2015, and the very first sort of incarnation of Watopia, the world that we're going to be heading into for the next round. It was custom built, and then we've since had the addition of these real life courses, haven't we? And it really has become an extra way of riding and getting exposure, and we're seeing more and more teams now with dedicated Zwift teams.
We are, and actually the esports platform and the esports racing teams are really taking off. You know, so things like the WTRL leagues, the volume of teams now going in to race those, right the way through from the Premier Division through Cat A, B, C and D. The teams and the squads from local clubs putting together to regions to friends, right the way through to the likes of Movistar and Canyon, are all now developing esports teams to race on this platform.
And it is coming to fruition for them. We're getting lots of publicity as our next rider makes their way through the line, and that is the squad from Watto. Done. We're now on with Balsam, and Balsam, our next rider on that climb, and the looks like the ascent of the hill just to come now for Balsam, who is going to be gaining points here, 53rd out of 66 places here. So by no means the last rider, because a number of riders not making the finish, that is for sure. So watching our rider coming in and on to the climb, a quick reminder, it's been a great race here today, and we've really loved covering it here at Full Speed Events. Emma joining myself and Matt Payne here, bringing you all of the action live as it happens on the Full Speed Events YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that, lots of action on there. Don't forget, of course, lots of rides on Zwift, whether that is races, and we've got the race series, the women's teams competing all the way through the week. And I think, Emma, when are you next in action for the AEO squad? Speaking of online race teams.
Thanks, Matt. Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, so more action on Tuesday night for the women who are out and racing in the Zwift leagues, and lots of different formats as well, individual races, time trials and so on. Of course, lots of rides as well, and lots of in-between stuff like things like the Donny Chango, which will be coming out every Tuesday and Thursday on the Downey Cycling YouTube channel. And we've got, of course, I'm sure we'll be seeing Emma in action on that as well. So as Balsam now well into this climb, Emma, takeaways from today from the racing, what's been your real sort of standout moments?
Well, I have to say, I do like to see some aggressive racing, and I was just so pleased to see Gail make that attack and not wait and take the group into the finish of that final climb. So for me, I was really pleased to see the action earlier on in the race than we might have expected, looking at the profile of the course today. So hats off to Gail for that attack and the ultimate win. But really good to see the riders behind putting in the efforts and putting in the digs as well to take that through to the finish.
I think that for me has been really important to see. It's not just the leading riders. There's been attacks all the way through the race field. There's been reforming. There's been a lot of tactical racing, and it's been aggressive, but people have been looking and coming back together. And for me, watching the teams have clearly been looking at the points, have been looking at the standings, and they know that they need to send a lot of riders up the road and try and get them as far up as possible, just like you do in real life. And I think for me that's really good to see, that we're seeing more and more teams committing in and putting bodies out there, then putting the results out. And you know, we always love to see the show going out and being put around social media, so don't forget, make sure you tag us in. It's at Full Speed Events, myself at Matt Payne. Emma, where can we catch you on social media?
So on Twitter you'll find me at Biking Emma. and on Facebook you'll find me at Emma Payne.
And don't forget, of course, you can make sure you catch up with all of the results of the race report as well on the British Women's Team Cup website. Details of the in real life events as well as the rides that will be taking place on Zwift. We're going to just take a quick flick across over there, and let's remind you just of what is still to come. So don't forget, we still have races 3 and 4 of the Zwift Race Series. That is the Three Sisters Reversed in the London Petzl. That's on the 25th of April and the 9th of May. And then we're on to the Real Life Road Race Series, 23rd of May at the Banbury Star. We have the 31st of May, the Josie Gilbert Memorial Crit. We've got Oakley Village Road Race on the 3rd of July, with Berkhamsted CC Road Race on the 25th of July. Bovington Bomber Crit on the 1st of August, and just a week later the Duncan Murray Wines Road Race. No going over there, Emma, already. She's seen the wine and thinking, oh, that would be a good win. I'm sure the win's going to take away plenty. And then Team Time Trial, something that a lot of people do on Zwift, and that is going to be finishing it off on Saturday the 4th of September at Darley-Moor. So let's jump back in with Balsam, who is now coming up towards those upper slopes. You can see the hills of Surrey spread out. And Emma, it's nice to see our riders out racing on Zwift, but plenty of real life events starting to happen as well, and lots of people mixing the two up, which is going to be interesting from a training point of view, but I'm sure all of it getting the competitive spirits going.
Yeah, and over the last week we've seen some time trials back and riders back out on the roads on the time trial circuit. We've seen cross race this weekend and a number of riders riding cross, which obviously being April, that's quite late in the season for a cross race, but we've had a bit of a gap in that season, so it's nice to see a few of those cross races for our off-road colleagues, and I'm looking forward personally to a mountain bike season this year.
Well, indeed, and we've seen some mountain bike racing down in the southern region as well. So lots of racing in real life. Don't forget, of course, you can catch up with all of the Women's Race Series on the Full Speed Events YouTube channel. You can catch up with things like the Donny Chain Gang on the Downey Cycling YouTube channel. Lots of coverage live from lots of Zwift events. And don't forget, of course, if you want to have a go, it's really easy to get onto a Zwift. If you've got a turbo trainer and computer, it's pretty much all you're going to need to make it happen, along with an internet connection. Probably doesn't need to be quite as fast as the one we've got here in the studio, or the multiple ones we've got here in the studio, but it's really easy to do, and there's loads of help out there, from Facebook groups to support groups, to make sure that you get a great riding experience. And it is for everybody. Lots of our riders are riding for the first time, whether that's on a chain gang, in a women's only chain gang, whether it is out riding with their friends and meeting up on Zwift. It's all doable, and this great platform really has revolutionised what has been a very difficult time worldwide. So as our last rider is on the way into the finish, I want to say a massive thank you to Emma here for giving up her time and joining me watching the racing. Have you enjoyed the racing, Emma?
Yeah, it's been really good today, Matt. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the team results come out and where we are in the standings for race 3.
So am I, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens and what changes those teams make in the intervening period, because it is going to be really about getting the right riders for the next course, which is another big climbing course.
It is, but it's a little bit different to today. So rather than the 5 climbs, we've got 3, with the second climb being the biggest.
And that is going to be really interesting. Well, it's going to be another great day out for the riders. Tough day for sure. We're going to be bringing you all of that action. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. So thank you very much, Emma. We're going to watch our last rider come in to the line, just finishing off. So a great ride. Thank you very much, Emma. And we'll catch up with you soon on the YouTube channel.
Thanks, Matt.
So another great race here today on the Full Speed Events YouTube channel, part of the British Women's Team Cup Series. It's been fantastic to see the racing in action, and our riders now done and finished, and time to get that recovery drink done. Or in the case of the TW1 race team, the home race team here They're going to be celebrating the fact they've got a home race win with Gail Robinson coming through, taking the win, and of course that on the Dave Peck Memorial Race online this year rather than being in real life. And we've got to say a massive thank you to the team for putting the racing on. We'll be back on the next of the race series. Remember, our next race will be kicking off, and we'll be back on the 25th, bringing you all of the action. So from myself, Matt Payne, from Emma, and all of the team are putting this together for Full Speed Events, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the British Women's Team Cup Series.